When it comes to Vue.js and persisting data in the browser's local storage, there are three things you need to consider. How are values stored in the local storage, how Vue.js watches objects, and accessing, or more specifically not accessing, local storage during server-side rendering. As an initial example, here I have one of those sidebars that can be minimized or expanded. It would be great if this app could remember my preference such that when I refresh, the sidebar stays the same. But currently it just reverts back to being expanded. If we look at the code, we have this sidebar component, which has an isOpenRef, which is used to toggle different classes, hide elements, and so on. Down here we have the button that toggles the value of the isOpenRef and renders a different icon for each state. So what we want to do is remember the value of this setting, and a great place to store this kind of thing is in the browser's local storage. So let's do it. We'll watch isOpen, and whenever that changes, we'll take the value and store it in the browser's local storage. We'll do window, local storage, set item. Instead of just isOpen, we'll be a bit more specific and say isSidebar open, and pass it the value. So now we can go in the browser, open up the DevTools, go to Application, Local Storage, click the button, we'll see that isSidebarOpen is saved to false. If we click the button again, it will update to true, and so on. So whenever isOpen changes, we save that value to our local storage. What we need to do next is check if we have this value in the local storage and update isOpen. So we'll do const storage isOpen equals to window local storage get item isSidebarOpen. And then if we have storage isOpen, we'll update isOpen.value to storage isOpen. Let's go ahead and test this in the browser. I'll minimize the sidebar, and now isSidebarOpen is set to false, which means when I refresh, the sidebar should stay closed, but it doesn't. So why would that happen? We have isSidebarOpen set to false in local storage, but somehow our code sees that as being true and the sidebar stays open. The reason why that happens is because whenever we save something to the local storage, the value is converted to a string. So when we do get item of isSidebarOpen here, we literally get the string false, which is a truthy value, and that's why the sidebar stays open. One way to kind of preserve the type of values we save in local storage is to use JSON stringify when saving the value, and then JSON parse when reading it. So now if we go back, refresh, toggle this up, close it, refresh again, and the sidebar stays closed. Let's say we want to do the exact same thing but with a form. If I open my local storage Vue component, here I have a form object with name and message as fields. If I scroll down, I have an input for the name and the text area for the message. So just as before, we want to preserve the state of the form in the browser's local storage. So let's go ahead and copy whatever we had in sidebar. I'll copy all this, paste it in, and start replacing storage isOpen with storage form, isSidebarOpen with my form, isOpen will now be form. So now if we go in the browser, refresh, type something in, we'll see that nothing is being saved in the browser's local storage. The reason why that happens is because this function is not executed. The reason why this is not executed is because whenever we're watching an object, this will only execute if the entire object is changed, whereas we're only updating the properties on that object. To instruct Vue that it should also watch for property changes, we need to pass a third parameter, which is an object with deep set to true. So now if we go in the browser, refresh, type something in, we'll see the local storage being updated. And of course, whenever we refresh the page, the form will still be there, which is what we wanted. But of course, having to write this stuff every time we want to sync something with the local storage isn't that great. It works, but it would be nice to be able to replicate this functionality without too much duplication. So let's go ahead and extract a composable. A composable is just a function that uses other Vue functions to encapsulate some logic. In our case, we want a function that deals with all this local storage stuff. So I'll go to my composables directory and create a new file called use LocalStorage. You can name this however you want, but the convention is to have this use prefix. Here we'll simply export default function. We'll go ahead and copy everything over. And now if we look at what needs to be parameterized in this function, we have this initial value of the ref function, and then we have the key which we are using to get and set the item in the local storage. So we'll have initial value and key. We'll use this here, and then the key here and here. Of course, we also need to rename the other stuff. Instead of form, we'll go with something like val. We have val.value here, and this is already a bit weird. And we should also rename this to storage val. And finally, we should return our val so we can use it. Now we can go to our sidebar component and delete all this. Instead of using the ref function from view, we'll use our composable. So we'll have use LocalStorage, which takes in the initial value, and then the key, which will be used to save in the local storage, is sidebar open. Now, if we go in the browser, refresh, the sidebar stays closed, which is correct. If we open it, refresh again, the sidebar is open, which is also correct. Let's do the same thing with the form. I'll go here, delete everything. Instead of ref, we'll use our composable, which is use LocalStorage. This will be our initial value, and then we need to pass in the key, which is my form. I'll go in the browser, refresh, type something in, refresh again, and the values are persisted in the local storage, which is what we wanted. And now we have a composable, which makes everything much easier to reuse. Finally, we need to tackle our last problem, which is what will happen if we are using this in a server-side rendering context. Well, this will blow up because, well, there is no window local storage on the server. What we can do to prevent this from breaking is wrap everything here inside an on-mounted hook, because the on-mounted hook will only run in the browser. So this should be safe when using SSR. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, share it, subscribe, click the bell button, all that good stuff.